Okay, for this tutorial, we will just work our way through getting into some data and building a report. So the first thing we would do is download our material, our financial sample data set. I'm going to save that like you should with my name to begin with. So I'll call it Mitch Wenger Financial Sample. And I'm going to just put that in my downloads folder for now and save it. So I'm following along with the tutorial I've linked to in the text as well. And we're going to basically review our sales figures and see which periods were most profitable, where do we see most success, all that good stuff. So first, you need to have Power BI Desktop installed. Once you do that, you can just run it. You can put a shortcut on your desktop, or you can just go to your Start menu, find Power BI, and go ahead and start it up. Once Power BI starts up, you get a screen that looks like this. I can click to get started. And I don't need to register right now. I'm going to just cancel. And here I can say, well, in this case, I know I want an Excel file, so I can click Import Data from Excel. Now I could also go up to my ribbon here and say Get Data, and then I have the option of choosing all kinds of data sources. Excel is already here as a commonly used shortcut, so I'll just say Get an Excel workbook. And my file navigator pops up to ask, where is this data set? Well, it's in my downloads folder, and it's that financial sample I just downloaded. So I'll go ahead and open that. Once the navigator pops up, it shows me all the sheets that are available in this workbook. I just want financials. Now, if I don't have to make any changes, I can just load from here. But in this case, we're going to make a few transforms. So we're going to click Transform Data. Once the Transform window pops up, basically it's a Power Query Editor, which is a tool Microsoft has for a variety of applications. You can actually use this in Excel as well. We're going to go to the Units Sold column, where right now it is listed as data type, and we're going to go to Transform. It's listed as data type decimal number. We're going to change that to a whole number. And it says I can actually add something new or just replace the current value. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in place. I'm just going to replace the current value. Now I can also do that by right-clicking and going down to Change Type here. So as with most software tools, there are lots of different ways of making that change. I can also click on the data type here and change it as well. So we've made that change. Let's say we also want to make the segment a little bit more prominent in our analysis here. So let's go ahead and click Segment. We're still on the Transform tab, but we're going to go down to Format for this text column, and we're going to format it as all uppercase. Next, let's go out to our fields to the right, and I can also increase the size of this window. I want to go to where I see month name. Again, I can change this a number of different ways. I can right-click it and say rename, or I can simply double-click it and type in the new name. And I don't need to know month name. I'm just going to shorten that to month. Let's go back to the product column. And in this case, we have discontinued the Montana product. So I can open up my filter here, the drop-down list filter, and I'll just clear Montana. And then I'll click OK. Now, if you've noticed, the Power Query Editor is keeping track of each step that we have performed in the transform as we do it. We can actually save that transform and reuse it anytime we load new product information here. Now we're done with our transforms, so we can click back to the home menu and we can click, basically we'll say close the Power Query Editor and apply the transforms we've made to our Power BI desktop workspace. So I'll go ahead and close and apply. And that brings me back, once all the data has reloaded into Power BI, to my main screen here. And if we look at the main screen here, you'll see I've got a section over here called Visualizations. And this gives me a list of different types of visualizations I can build. I can work with the values or with the format of each visualization as I build it. I can also see the various fields I have available in my data space. And you can see I've got a little bit of a clue as to what type of field each one is. The ones with the sigma to the left of them are numeric fields that I would most likely use as measures. You've got date that has a calendar next to it, so I can expand that and break it down into the date hierarchy and address various values of that date hierarchy. And then I've got my other columns as well. Over here to the left, I've got a data icon, which lets me once more, just review the data that I have. I've got the report workspace icon, which is where we start building the reports we're going to work with. And here you can see I can put together reports a lot like you do in Excel. I'm working on report page 1, and then I can add another report page, and I can change the names of these report pages just like you would in Excel with the worksheet tabs. This third one is actually the data model. We'll take a look at that in just a minute and see how you can use that to help build relationships between your data sources. Let's go ahead and show the data. And I'm going to say I want a new measure. So I'm going to click on New Measure. And I want to total up all of the units sold. Okay? So I can set my measure to be total units sold equals sum, and then in my financials table, and instead of regular parentheses, I'll use square brackets here to indicate the field name, units sold. So I close my square bracket, close my parentheses. I can click on the check mark to commit this new total units sold field. And what happened here is instead of equals, I put plus. So it's giving me a little error message, caution, hey, are you sure about that? You're using special characters. I hit shift. So now I'll try it again. Seems to like that now, and you can see over in the right in my fields picker, I now have that calculated field called total units sold. So now let's say I want to go and create a whole new table. I can actually build a new table. And I'm going to build this one out using a function, and I'm going to make this, I'm going to call this calendar, and I'll remember not to hit the shift. So the calendar is going to equal calendar, and you can see I've got calendar as a function, so I can hit tab just like I did in Excel, and it gives me the tooltips there to help me out. And I'm going to start with date 2013, 01, 01, and date 2014, 01, 01. And actually I want that to be the end of the year, 12/31. So I press enter, and I now have basically a single column table that I've just created that includes every date from January 1st, 2013 to December 31st, 2014. So you may ask, well, why would you do that? Don't you already have a date field in that other table, in the financials table? And we do, but there's no guarantee that every date has been used. That now gives me two tables that I'm working with. I now have the original financials table, which we imported from Excel, and a brand new calendar table just with the one column that we created from scratch. Now you may recognize a screen that looks like this from either putting together a data model in Excel, or if you've had a chance to use Microsoft Access before, from creating your relationships in your database. And the process works pretty much exactly the same. I'm going to take my date field from financials and connect them over to the date field in the calendar. Now the visual doesn't give me quite as precise a line as you get in Access, where it actually connects the fields precisely. Instead, to just verify that I have made this relationship the way I want it, I just double click on the line, and that will bring up my edit relationship, and I can make sure that in this case the date field, which is the one that's highlighted, connects to the date field as well, make this relationship active, and you can see it's going to be a many to one, so that's fine. I like it the way it is. And you can see the many is on the financial side, the one is on the calendar side. So for any calendar date, I may have many financial transactions, I may have none. So at that point, we've transformed, we've loaded our data, we've built a relationship. We can now get down to the business of building our reports. So any good report should have a title. So we'll go ahead and insert a text box. And then we'll type in executive summary. Finance report. And we'll set this to 20-point typeface, bold it, and then we'll resize it. Resize the text box so that it fits well. All right. So now let's say we want to create a line chart showing profit by month and year. So let's go ahead and we'll pull in profit anywhere into the workspace, and that creates a brand new visual in our report for us. Now we want to bring the date in. Because we created that extra table earlier, we're going to bring the date in from calendar, because remember, that's going to include every single date we want between the beginning of 2013 and end of 2014, rather than just those dates that are available within our financials. And also, you notice that once we created that new calendar table, Power BI recognizes that as the driver for our calendar instead of the date field in the financials, which used to have the calendar beside it. So I'm going to drag the calendar in here as well. And now we see that we have profit by year. Now here we have two bars. Yeah, that's fine. I can actually drill down on that one and say, show me, quarter 1, 2014, quarter 2, 2014, etc. But in our case, instead of being able to show drill downs, what we're interested in is let's go ahead and just show all the dates that we have. And when we do that, we can see the profit by date for a variety of date ranges from 2013 all the way through the end of 2014. Now at this point, we can decide, well, instead of a bar chart like we have, let's change it to a line chart. I do that just by clicking on the line chart in the visualizations here. And at that point, I still have my tooltips, and I can also see December seems to be my best month here for profit. Now let's say I want to see profit by country, for example. Now in this case, Power BI is pretty astute, and when I drag country in here and then drag profit in, I have a map here. Before, you saw the size of the bubbles changed when I dragged in profit. The size of the bubbles now represents the amount of profit per country. And of course, this is over all dates. And this shows us that Europe and Canada are outperforming the US and Mexico. All right, now let's say we want a bar chart that's going to bring in the companies that we want to look into and which segments we may want to look into. Now in this case, I'm going to bring in multiple fields at the same time, so I can do it that way. And I'll just click on a blank area here, and I'll start with sales, product, and segment. And you can see I end up getting a gross sales by product and segment here. And I can space this out so it's a little bit easier to see what's going on. So with this, we can see that it looks like the Paseo product line is doing well in the government space. Also, it and VTT are doing well in the government and small business space. The small business and government space look like they're outperforming channel partners, enterprise, mid-market, etc. Now, if you've used Excel before, you've seen how you can put slicers in Power Pivot. And you can do that right in Power BI as well. So we could put a slicer right in. So let's say I wanted to add a slicer to this report. I can drag my slicer in here. Or I could double click and create a new slicer here. And then I can drag in my date field to tell it I want the slicer to operate on date. And at this point, I've got this slider type slicer where I can choose the actual date for beginning and end. And I could also change the type of the slicer. I can make it a list if I would like, or a drop down like you would see in an Excel filter. So on and so forth. And you'll see that the report updates dynamically as I change the slicer values. So another way I can set up the slicer, let's say I want to set up a slicer, a different type of slicer. So I'm going to go ahead and find my slicer tool, put it in there. I'm going to bring it down here. And now what I want to do is I'll bring date in here one more time. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and expand this field. So now I'm going to create another slicer. Let's say this time I want to use my hierarchy rather than just beginning and ending. So I can bring my date hierarchy in here. And you can see what happens now is I get that drop-down list that we were looking at before. So let's say in this case, I'm only interested in the year and month. I don't really care which quarter it was or which day. So I can come up here to the field and get rid of the quarter and get rid of the day. And now that gives me a drop down of just 2,000, my months and my years, not the entire hierarchy. And you can see if I go to November 2013, I see my sales just for that. So I have two filters in essence going on here. First filter says show me everything. The second filter says just show me November of 2013, which is actually what shows up in my 3 reports. So that's something to be careful about if you want to use multiple slicers. From a formatting standpoint, we can go to the View menu, and much like you see with your other Office tools, you can go to various types of themes. Let's see if we can find executive, electric, executive. So we'll change it to executive. Going to have a more muted color palette there. So I've gone back and selected both 2013 and 2014 in my slicer here. So we now see all of our data values. So let's say we want to do a little bit of minor formatting before we wrap things up. So I can go back to this one here. I've got profit by date, but that's not really what it is. It's profit by month and year now. So let's go ahead and change that title, and we'll make it profit by month and year. Let's make that text size, let's bump it up to 16. And let's give our visual a nice little drop shadow. Okay. Now let's go to our map. And under map, you can see I've got a variety of different map styles. So here, instead of kind of a road map, I'm looking at this at a pretty high level. Let's just do a basic grayscale. So now we can focus more on the data points. And because it looks like we're going to be going with a shadow all the way around, let's go ahead and turn a drop shadow on for that one as well. Here we've got our gross sales by product and segment. Let's go to the title for that one. We'll change the font size or text size to 16 here as well. Turn that shadow on. And because we want to be consistent, we now need to go back to our map, and under the title, make sure we change that text size to 16 as well. If I go to this year month one that we made with the drop downs, I'm going to skinny it up a little bit so that it doesn't overlap our bar chart. And I can go to the selection controls. I can also give it a select all option. That basically tells it turn everything on without having to go and use your control key and all that. Let's say we want to spruce up the title a little bit now. So what we can do is we will put a little shape behind our title. Actually in front of it, doesn't really matter. So I'll click Shapes, select Rectangle, and I'm going to resize this rectangle so that it overlaps our title almost exactly. And then I'll come over here to the format, and then in the fill section, I'm going to change the fill color to a lighter shade of blue. So I'll just select this one right here. And under format, I'm going to send to back. So once I've done that, now it looks like my executive summary is blocking the new rectangle we just created. So to fix that, we will just go to the format, the text box, turn the background off, and now we've got a little shaded section for our title. So we can also add a new rectangle. We'll make it a nice light gray one. And we will then format the shape for the fill. We will make it a very, very light white, just a little bit darker than white. We will turn the outline off, no outline. And then just like we did before, we'll go to the format menu and send it to the back. All right, so we'll get rid of this slider. We can move this visual down just a bit, and that'll give us the space to increase the size of this box enough to cover everything in our graphics. All right, so we've got ourselves a basic dashboard here, and it's interactive, so I can click on things in the various visuals if I want to interact with them. So at this point, we would do a file, save, and I'll save this with my name like you should. Power BI intro. And you'll see the name of the file now shows up in my title bar of my application window. So I can just verify that I put it in there correctly. So that's it for this tutorial. You can actually close out of Power BI if you open up the linked tutorial to follow along. You can also see how you can publish this to the Power BI service. So hope you were able to follow along, and we'll move on in the next section.